We have Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. Senator, great to have you. First, your thoughts on the summit. I argue, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, you know, every one of these European leaders that are trying to weigh in and tell Donald Trump how to negotiate with Vladimir Putin, all of them are guilty of helping to fund his war machine, number one. Number two, they're all impotent. Number three, Putin wouldn't meet with one of them because they don't have the stature to even meet with him. And I think the president has no fear expending political capital for a cause that really isn't even American-based, in the sense that we're not benefiting greatly from it, except with a safer world and less death, which I think is a noble goal. Thoughts?
Listen, the European leaders have demonstrated weakness towards Putin and towards our enemies for a long time, and that's a lot of what set Russia up to invade Ukraine. They have eagerly bought Russia's oil and gas. They have funded the Russian military apparatus. And the reason we have a war in Ukraine is because of Joe Biden and the Democrats' weakness. In particular, Joe Biden waived the sanctions on Nord Stream 2, the undersea pipeline from Russia to Germany. I wrote those sanctions into law. I'm the author of that legislation. Donald Trump signed my sanctions legislation into law and shut down that pipeline. That prevented war. When Joe Biden came in, he gave a multi-billion-dollar gift to Vladimir Putin, and that caused the war in Ukraine. My hopes and prayers are with Donald Trump in Alaska over the next couple of days. I think President Trump is trying very, very hard to end this war. He has a record of ending wars, of bringing people together. But the way to do so is to do so from a position of strength. That's what President Trump understands, that the weakness of a Joe Biden, the weakness of appeasement does not end conflict. It creates even more conflicts. So in your monologue, when you said there's a very real chance President Trump will get up and leave if Putin refuses to concede anything, I think that's right. That's exactly what Ronald Reagan did in Reykjavik with Gorbachev, and it's what led to winning the Cold War. We will end the war in Ukraine, but we will do so through a strong president and a strong commander-in-chief. That's exactly what President Trump is giving us.
But look at this issue in D.C., law and order, safety and security, and Democrats are angry at Trump. And meanwhile, you know, it's safer in Baghdad, it's safer in Mexico City, it's safer in every other capital around the globe than it is Washington, D.C. So they're on the wrong side. But they were on the wrong side of illegal immigration, the party of Abrego Garcia. On the wrong side of, we want to pay for sex change operations and we want gender-affirming care for minors. They don't seem to be learning, and J.B. Pritzker saying we shouldn't change? I'm okay with that.
Look, it's almost as if the Democrats took the top 10 issues in America that are 80-20, and they said, let's pick the 20 side of all of them. Let's pick the side that 80% of Americans disagree with us. And then it seems now they've decided that's not bad enough. Let's find some 90-10 issues. What's happening in D.C., this is easy. President Trump is showing bold and strong leadership. Legally, he unquestionably has the authority to do what he's doing. Under the Constitution, the federal government has blanket control over the District of Columbia. It's unlike any city in America because the Constitution gives the federal government total authority. There is also a federal statute that gives the president the authority to declare an emergency, which he has, and to use and to control the D.C. police officers. I will say for the residents of D.C., there are many of them that are thrilled right now. D.C. has the fourth highest murder rate of any country in America. Number one is St. Louis. Number two is New Orleans. Number three is Detroit. And number four is Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C.'s murder rate is more than 6 times higher than New York City. It is higher than Bogota, Colombia. And the Democrats are saying, they've taken this to say, you know what? We're for the murderers. We're for the carjackers. The rate of vehicle theft in Washington, D.C. is 3 times as high as the national average. And I think the president is showing strong leadership by saying we stand with police officers, we stand with law enforcement, and we're going to keep your city safe and your family safe, even when Democrats are so radical that their view is no cash bail, don't prosecute juvenile carjackers, and just let violent criminals go. I'll tell you, Sean, as you know, I work in D.C. in the Senate. The city feels markedly different with Donald Trump in the White House. The last 4 years under Biden, the crime had gotten really bad. Rand Paul had a staffer stabbed on the street in the middle of the afternoon. There was a man who worked in the first Trump administration who was shot and murdered in his car at 5 p.m. Henry Cuellar, a Democrat member of Congress, was carjacked in Washington, D.C. And it is palpable with the Trump administration coming in. Number one, federal workers have gone back to work. Under Biden, 80, 85, 90% of them were staying home. The city was a ghost town. But number two, the criminals had the run of the city. And the president is saying, we are going to stop the murderers. He's exactly right. And that's not even an 80-20 issue. That's a 90-10. Murderers should be in jail. And Democrats need to have their head examined that they're on the wrong side of that one.
They need their head examined on a lot of issues. Senator Cruz, great to see you. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.